Good morning. I hope you all got the word about sitting nearest the balloon that matches your mood and or your wardrobe so that you can maybe sit next to somebody different today. Good morning, I'm Reverend Paul Beckel. Welcome to Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship. You are welcome here, regardless of your citizenship status, your national origin, your gender identity, your theological conceptions. Thank you for being here. Anyone feeling blue today? Or feeling green, as in uncomfortably new, either at BUF or uncomfortably new in this world you no longer recognize? Anyone seeing red? Is everybody going to be gathered up over here? It's totally understandable, and you're in good company. At the same time, we are fortunate to be among families who are joyfully welcoming new babies and old friends getting new degrees and loved ones in remission from cancer. As an emotionally honest congregation, we know that every day can bring all of the above, which is rejuvenating and exhausting. Last night, as I was chatting about this with my new friend at the craft supply store, preparing this rather goofy setup, asking for her advice as to how I might say that it's okay to laugh together in the midst of tragedy, she said, well, it's a form of resistance. And so in thanksgiving for 20-year-old sages, generations of leaders before us, and generations to come, let's sing together this acknowledgement of tenderness and our strength with one another. Our gathering song, are we up there? Okay, number 317, We Are Not Our Own. Please stand with me and sing in the gray hymnal, number 317. We are not our own, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruits of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us bring thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. Let us be a home of welcome, living stone upholding Since the pandemic began its oh so slow fade, we've experienced this awkwardness. If we are not our own, then who gets to decide the terms for how we gather? Should we shake hands? Should we hug? Bow? Cringe? Sometime down the road, we're going to figure it out, but not because of some new all-time, all-purpose rule that we can thoughtlessly mimic. In the meantime, we can either let the awkwardness keep us apart, or we can laugh and humbly, actually, tune in to each other's body language, facial expressions, and words. So let's get on with it, on with the dance of greeting. Greetings! Greetings!
All right. You can come gently back to your seats. Coming back to your seats, settling in. Thank you for not holding back on your greetings. Good morning. I'm Carrie Kenline. I'm a member of the celebrant team here at BUF. And growing up as the youngest child in the family, I had older siblings who didn't really hesitate to tell me when I was being a dumb little kid. So in school, I stayed pretty quiet. And in social situations, I often held back because I didn't want to be exposed as being stupid. So my younger self would have thought it was amazing that I'm standing up here in front of you like this right now. To get to this place from that place was a kind of meandering process and involved, luckily, many safe situations that were safe enough and encouraging enough, and where it mattered to me enough to risk putting myself forward, which of course expanded my life. And I came to learn that that wasn't only an act of courage for myself, it was often an act of generosity, to not hold back what I had to share. So I'm so grateful for this community's culture of support for each of us to really show up as who we are and contribute what we can, and the ways the BUF community has helped me to do even more of that than I'd done before. So as we light this chalice this morning, let's dedicate it to our generosity. May we each find our own best ways to be generous, moment by moment, situation by situation, with ourselves, with each other, with the larger community, sharing whatever it is we have to offer. And now, please join me in reciting our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life, celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant. And now we're going to have a story.
Good morning, kids and non-kids. I'm Jane Beckel, and I'm going to tell you a story today called The Teddy Bear. This is a story that many of you already know, but I'm a school counselor, and I always tell kids I work with that good stories should be read over and over again. This is a book called The Teddy Bear, and it is a story that helps teach about empathy, which is a big word. Empathy means imagining how other people feel and caring about it. And there's also generosity in this book. So let's get started. The Teddy Bear by David McPhail. The teddy bear had a good home, a warm and cozy place to sleep, many friends, and someone who loved him. The teddy bear got to go places too. He went on trips, short trips, long trips. The boy who loved him took him everywhere. One day, while traveling, the boy and his family stopped for lunch. In a moment of confusion and forgetfulness, the teddy bear is kind of sitting on this bench next to the boy, and the little boy falls asleep. The teddy bear was left behind. It wasn't on purpose. So the workers are cleaning up. By the time he was missed and a search begun, it was too late. He was not to be found. I don't know if you noticed, but his little feet are sticking out of the garbage can. Yeah. The teddy bear was unhappy and afraid. He lay squashed in a dark, smelly place. And even though he had a fine fur coat, he was beginning to get a chill. Long hours passed. The teddy bear was despairing, meaning he didn't think he would ever be found. Suddenly, he felt fingers close around his leg and pull him free. "Saved!" the little bear rejoiced. "My little boy has rescued me." But the hands that held him did not belong to the little boy. When his eyes adjusted to the brightness, the teddy bear saw he was in the grasp of a bearded man wearing a long green coat. The man held up the teddy bear and stared. Slowly, a smile spread across the man's face. Then he stuffed the teddy bear in his pocket and began walking. The teddy bear spent the rest of that day in the bearded man's pocket as he walked slowly through the city streets. Night came on, and the man made his way home. He doesn't have the kind of home that most of us do. The teddy bear lay awake, looking at the stars as the bearded man slept. That night, for the first time since the teddy bear came into his life, the little boy went to bed without him. You might be able to see the little boy, and a tear is running down his face. In the morning, the sad little boy went off to school, and the sad little teddy bear went back into the pocket of the long green coat as the man set out on his daily rounds. Days passed, weeks went by, then months. The boy still missed his teddy bear, but with each passing day, he thought about him less and less. He had new toys to occupy him and new friends to keep him busy. As for the bear, he missed the little boy and his old friends, but he was enjoying his new life in the company of the bearded man. Best of all, the bear still felt loved. The winter came to an end. The days grew warmer. The bearded man put away his long coat. Now he carried the bear under his arm as he went about his business. One spring day, the man placed the teddy bear on a park bench while he looked for something. Now it just so happens that the little boy was walking through the park that day with his mother and father. As he was passing the park bench, the little boy noticed the teddy bear. "My bear!" he cried, scooping up his old friend and squeezing him tight. "Amazing," said the little boy's mother. "How can this be?" said the little boy's father. Then they saw the bearded man approaching. "Come along," said the father. "Mustn't be late," said the mother, and they all walked quickly toward the park exit. They were on the curb waiting for the light to change when they heard someone wailing. Wailing means you're crying really hard. It was the bearded man. Standing in front of the bench, he cried out, my bear, where is my bear?" The traffic light turned green, the sign blinked walk, but instead of crossing the street, the little boy ran back to the park, back to the bench, and the bearded man. Is this your bear?" the little boy asked, holding the teddy bear out to the man. The bearded man smiled. He took the teddy bear in his rough hands and he hugged him. "Thank you," he said to the little boy. "I don't know what I'd do without him." "I know what you mean," said the little boy. "I used to have one just like him." Then, with his mother and father beside him, he walked back to the corner to wait for the light to change. And that is the end of the story.
And so as you all go practice empathy and kindness on each other, as we're doing as well, we'll sing you a song as you go. So, it has been so great to see so many visitors over the last few months. Whatever brought you in, welcome. And just for a moment, if you are willing and able, why don't you rise just for a second so we can remind ourselves, say, hey, afterward, let's say hi to this new visitor. If there's any visitors who are willing to stand, or if not, that's okay too. All right, thank you. All right, so each of you has won a balloon. Serious, somebody's got to take them home. After the service today, we have coffee and conversation out that door and down the stairs. Please come and find out what the essence of BUF is by how we treat one another. Also downstairs at 12:15, so down the stairs through the social hall and a bit over that way, just ask somebody, is the library. And in the library at 12:15, a group is going to be meeting about our Humanitas program, which is in transition. And Hank and Constance are very eager to get things rolling again, and they need your help. Finally, Gail is giving a tour today, so that'll be around 11:30, right after we're done. That's Gail. That's the tour sign. So go find her. She's going to be holding that sign up for the next 40 minutes. And because we want you to know how to find your way around so you can feel comfortable going to any of the activities that are announced. And finally, next Sunday, we have a potluck lunch. So please come with something to share. And knowing that there will be visitors who did not know that, make sure we have enough so that they feel welcome as well. And Rod, where are you? Oh, there you are. Great. Oh, yes, hang on.
We actually are going to have the party event in here today.
Okay, so our gathering with the Black Lives Matter Justice team about building beloved community is going to be right here at noon. Is that correct? Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
I had asked the pledge drive folk if I could talk to you for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Paul's going to time me. And talk to you about canvassing. As you know, I'm a shy and retiring guy. I don't get out much, but one of the things that I do every winter when the time comes for pledge drive, I volunteer to canvass, and it's an important thing. I have some reticence and some wonder and not wanting to do it, but once I do the canvassing, going out talking to 3 or 4 members of the congregation and friends, I come away from it really fulfilled. And this is the pitch. We would love to have anyone that can go out and canvass and talk to the folks. And one of the most important things about this is canvassers are going to ask members what they think about the congregation. We want your input, both good and bad and constructive. Canvassers go out. Ostensibly, yes, it's about money, but it's much more than money. The real thing is, it's like taking an environmental scan. That's government talk for testing the water and see what people think. Lastly, as we know, there's a ministerial change coming. Paul and Jane are going to be retiring to Minneapolis this coming summer. And I would say to you or suggest to you that all of us can pitch in some way. Not everyone can be a canvasser, but all of you, whether you're 85 or 25, have a role in shaping what the next chapter of this wonderful organization is going to be. And I invite you to come and see Lee after the service down at the coffee hour. That's Lee right there. And different from Gail. Gail's got the sign, Lee's got the stuff. Please do consider canvassing, and if not, okay. Thanks a lot.
All right. Well, today's service is about generosity and power, and also how we might be a more generous community. And I want to talk about a phrase that I learned in recent years that I really love: generous authority. It comes from a book by Priya Parker called The Art of Gathering: How We Meet and Why It Matters. Priya Parker is passionate about the idea that gatherings of people can be powerful, meaningful, and even transformative, whether it's a class, a party, a committee meeting, or a worship service. But she admits and laments that often they aren't. And I'm sure you've experienced this, sitting in meetings where people are saying the same old thing over and over in the same old ways, or a party where it's celebrating a person and no one's paying attention to them. Golden opportunities are wasted because people get stuck on autopilot, doing things the way they've always done them. She has done a lot of conflict resolution at high levels, and she's brilliant at it, but she's equally interested in the power of a birthday party to create a space for something real to happen. She believes that gatherings matter and that human beings often need some help to shift out of familiar patterns and ineffective ways of doing things. So she has this instruction for anyone who's hosting a party or leading a group or event. Use your generous authority to shift things so they better fulfill the purpose of the gathering. In the phrase generous authority, authority means you have some power here. You can ask things of people. You can suggest a new way of doing things. At the baby shower, you can ask the guests to share helpful stories with the nervous couple about to have a child. When you see that a meeting is going down unhelpful pathways, you can invite the participants to pause, take a deep breath, remember the underlying purpose of why they're meeting, and invite some fresh brainstorming about ways to get there. Of course, if you're a quiet person, a polite person, this can be challenging if you don't want to interrupt or make other people uncomfortable. You might be tempted to just sit there with your frustration at the ineffectiveness of what's unfolding. But I want to remind you that the phrase generous authority also includes the word generous. It is not about being controlling or pushy or self-important. You're doing it because you think it will ultimately allow the gathering to be more satisfying for everyone involved, even if there's some immediate pushback, which there often will be. You have your eye on the end result. You are helping it to be something that is worthy of everyone's time and attention. And if you haven't developed a reputation as a pushy or controlling person, people might be even more likely to listen to you. It's very likely that when you assert your generous authority, many people will breathe a sigh of relief. Your voice, your ideas, your energy might provide a much-needed missing ingredient. This is actually one of my hopes for BUF, to make this place a safe enough space for the quiet ones, the ones who are new here, the ones who've been in the background, the voices we've yet to hear from, to use their generous authority to make things more inclusive, more relevant, satisfying, effective, and generous. And that leads me to something else I learned from Priya Parker, the concept of pop-up rules. Pop-up rules are different than other kinds of rules because they are temporary. They only apply to a particular event at a particular time. They are rules that are put in place to break norms, to take us out of autopilot and help create a shared alternate reality. So here are a few examples. At Lunch with Paul, which happens every Tuesday at noon here, the norm is that we speak with the whole table and not inside conversations with the people we're sitting next to. And this requires the whole table not just to listen better, but to be aware of who has not yet had a chance to speak. A wedding invitation might specify that the entire ceremony and festivities will be unplugged and request that people kindly plan to turn off their phones and cameras. Well, wasn't that appropriate? Thank you for illustrating why they might invite that. A networking event might ask participants to put aside their sales pitches and instead discuss in small groups how to address a community problem. They might be asked to wait until the end of the event to share their names and businesses with each other. Cool idea, right? You can imagine how in each of these cases, having specific, clearly articulated, somewhat controversial rules could shake things up a bit and potentially help people feel more present, engaged, and connected. But pop-up rules can also do something else. They can make an event much more inclusive. Let me explain. In any group, there are certain ways people tend to do things and shared assumptions about what's acceptable and polite. For instance, If you happen to be white, upper middle class, over 50, English-speaking, cisgender, heterosexual, and a lifelong Unitarian, you may have a certain set of assumptions about what should happen in our gatherings. And those assumptions are often different from those of someone who is a different age, has less money, came from another country, has a different first language, gender expression, religion, or skin color. Without meaning to, just by doing things the way we've always done them, very well-intentioned people can easily leave out anyone who is different or new to the community. So one way to address that is to educate ourselves and expand our understanding of other people's experience. And we're trying to do a lot of that here at BUF. But another way is to use pop-up rules. As Priya Parker says, pop-up rules are perhaps the new etiquette. If implicit etiquette, absorbed from birth, was useful for gatherings of closed tribes, explicit pop-up rules are better for gathering across difference. In other words, our old versions of etiquette were designed to keep outsiders out. Pop-up rules create a new etiquette designed to welcome more people in. This makes sense to me. With fresh, different, and clearly described pop-up rules, no one is completely familiar on completely familiar ground. So everyone is a bit awkward and off-kilter as they practice doing things a little differently than they normally would. In that sense, they can serve as a great equalizer. And if they get people working together to create an alternate shared reality, they have the potential of helping everyone feel a bit more like they belong. So, for example, in a worship service, you might be asked to sit next to a colored balloon that matches your mood or your outfit, or to greet each other in some way that's different than you expected. It might feel awkward, but you are entering that awkward space with everyone else in the room. In a group gathered to explore racism or gender expression or some other loaded topic, participants might be invited to break into small groups to share a story of a time they felt confused about what was politically correct. That could set the stage for a more open-hearted, less stressful, and more effective gathering. In this fellowship, we've determined that we don't want to be a closed tribe. We want to widen our circle. So I want to invite you to think creatively about what pop-up rules you might want to suggest for the gatherings you're a part of here. I encourage you to do it with an open heart and with generous authority. Even if you get some pushback and groans, which you will, it's worth it. When offered with care and respect, pop-up rules can help us be a more genuinely generous community. Now, I believe it's time for the choir to sing. Is that right?
Is this good? Should I move that way? Okay. I'm short, though. People can't really see me down there. You want me to... white snowfall and grays of November to greenings of spring. So ministry seasons engender deeper reasons for living lives of service, for gifts that we bring.
And thank you, Carrie. She hadn't known about the balloons in advance. Way to roll with it. And thanks for telling us about how pop-up rules are not just imposed from above, but that we're all having generous authority. All can make up. We're all hosting conversations all the time. Every conversation we have, we can really do that. We're in charge more than maybe we realize. So now, you may be wondering, should I trust this guy? How can I know he's not an AI hologram? It's pretty suspicious, too, that he's talking about generosity. Sounds like a setup for, like, next he's going to ask me to buy gift cards for the Underprivileged Hackers Fund. Right? Who can you trust? Before he was late-night host, Stephen Colbert was a satirical, blowhard news anchor. On one segment of the Colbert Show in 2005, I can't believe that was 20 years ago. In 2005, he offered us his word of the day, truthiness. This was not a happy time, and it wasn't exactly funny, but we were going wherever we could for an escape from the devastating horrors of the Iraq War. At a time when the death toll of American soldiers had just hit 2,000, Iraqis on the way to 200,000, and the CIA reporting that there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which had been the original justification for the war, as proven by General Colin Powell showing us this tiny vial of water. The real Stephen Colbert later said that these were the things that had been on his mind when he came up with truthiness. What his character on the show said was this: now I'm sure the word police out there, the wordinistas over at Webster's, are going to say, hey, that's not a word. Well, anyone who knows me knows that I'm no fan of dictionaries or reference books. They're elitist, constantly telling us what is or isn't true, or what did or didn't happen. So that was 2005, and over the next few years, we saw the emergence of Facebook, smartphones, and a pseudo-libertarian movement called the Tea Party, also known as the AstroTurf Party because it pretended to be a spontaneous grassroots movement, but was actually funded by large corporate interests. Skepticism, always an important part of discerning the truth, went into overdrive, and our sense of social trust decayed. Because without truth, how can there be trust? Trust me, I am going to get to that. Around this time, National Geographic found it necessary to broadly communicate its policy that neither the magazine nor their website would ever publish a digitally manipulated photograph other than by adjusting the lighting. And I felt the need to demonstrate to our naive preschoolers at the church in Wisconsin that I was serving. They hadn't been born with iPhones in their hands back then. So I figured I needed to show them a familiar photo of our courtyard where we gathered on Sundays for coffee hour. And then I alerted those who hadn't come in through the courtyard that when they went out for coffee hour, they would see that we'd begun to make some changes because the stained glass windows had gotten very drafty. But I assured them not all was lost, as I had taken the opportunity to install something more secure. Of course, what is and isn't true, and how we decide what is true, has always been up for debate. Skepticism has always been an important part of discerning truth, but it had never occurred to my naive little mind that the very notion of truth might no longer be relevant to our civic norms of debate. That it would someday be acceptable to say, within the course of an argument with a straight face, that truth was beside the point. I thought back to my Cold War era childhood when I learned that the preeminent Soviet newspaper, entirely controlled by the Soviet government, which party members were required to read, was called Pravda, the Russian word for truth. I did not foresee that an American president would have the gall or the historical ignorance to create a media platform called Truth Social. Now, I wish I could predict the trajectory of how the relevance of truth will evolve over the next few decades. I wish I could predict that evidence will be recognized as essential. In the meantime, and I realize that in the meantime is a terrifying vacuum in which to live. In the meantime, I believe there is something stable, should we choose it, something which, unlike truth, we can actually control. Honesty. I can't control what other people claim to be true. I can't even control what people say in my name. This past week, many people received manipulative texts and emails from someone named Reverend Paul Beckel. This happens all the time, has been since the dawn of truthiness. Scammers preying on trusting people who want to be generous. Members of congregations, in particular, are frequent targets. We have our very best features turned against ourselves. This does not mean, though, that forevermore trust is foolish. It does not mean that generosity is foolish. As always, though, trust has to be founded upon and trustworthiness demonstrated by our honesty. We cannot make anyone trust us, but we can demonstrate our trustworthiness. And so I pray, may I have the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, courage to change the person I can, and the wisdom to know that that's me. We typically associate honesty with the words we say. Another aspect of honesty, of course, is integrity, doing what we say. These are inseparable, essential, and powerful components of building trust. So what does honesty entail at this particular moment in our lives? What does it require of us, and what does it promise? For one thing, when we are on edge, as we will be, when we are on edge, as many of us may be, as much as we may be tempted to react, we can't give up critical thinking. For example, we cannot succumb to believe whatever we hear that reminds us that we need to be angry and scared. Let's save our outrage for the cruelty and stupidity that we know is true. Let's not pass along stories, even if they are crazy enough to be true, stories from unverifiable sources. And as we continue to build trust with each other by demonstrating our trustworthiness, let's remember the power of emotional honesty as well. In some cases, this will mean letting down our guard, being emotionally vulnerable, which isn't easy. It's a cyclical thing. We're probably not going to let down our guard unless we feel safe. But when we do, we create safety for one another, and it can build on itself. Especially those who have experienced the power of love and the results here at BUF of, even for those of you who maybe have been here for 3 months or a short period of time, but especially for those who have been here a while to absorb and recreate our culture. You who have absorbed and experienced the results of decades of trust building within this beloved community. You can best keep that cycle going, so newcomers will also feel safe to join in. Because creating and constantly recreating a safe place for everyone is one of the most powerful acts of social justice we can perform. Emotional honesty also comes in the form of assertiveness. Speaking our truth, claiming our values, claiming our power, living according to our principles, not passively, but in the face of opposition. So let's be honest about power. Here's another cycle. Honesty builds trust. Trust opens us to generosity. Generosity supports beloved community, and beloved community can hold power, or better yet, give away power, as each of these continually reinforce each other. Honesty, trust, generosity, beloved community. through our financial integrity, through our financial generosity, of course, but no less through our kindness toward each other, our accountability to each other, and our teaming up to do what needs to be done to help each other thrive. One piece of this, of course, is to create and constantly recreate this safe place for everyone, providing a place where everyone can be true to themselves is one of the most powerful acts of social justice we can perform. In this spirit, then, we gather and we go out. And again, we gather and go out again to live as if truth matters, because it always will. Let's sing together now. If I had a hammer. So please stand. Oh, okay.
If I Had a Hammer was written by Pete Seeger, but many of us know the version that Peter, Paul, and Mary made popular. And did you know that when they were young, that they actually performed at the Washington Monument with Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963? So this particular song has been an anthem for activism for a really long time. So we're going to sing it without accompaniment. The choir is going to provide the ooh, ooh, you know, the oohs. And so the intro would be ooh, 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 ooh. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out warning, I'd hammer out love between brothers and sisters, all over this land.
collection every month to support an organization nearby who puts our principles and values into practice. Northwest Youth Services, as we're going to hear, is an excellent example of that we want to support generously.
Snap, if you could hear me. Snap, if you could hear me. Okay. Entirely your choice if you want to listen, though. Before I was walking up, I was just saying how I feel like I did before basketball games. I played basketball for a lot of my life, and I'm an introvert by nature, and so there's always this buzz of electricity and anxiety before speaking in front of a crowd, so I'm just gonna let that out a little bit. I'm Lance. Hi. If I'm not around, you can call me he, him. I am really grateful to be here. I'm thankful for all of y'all for being here. It's a privilege to be able to speak to y'all for a bit. I'm actually in the middle of a 2-day retreat because I'm also commissioner on the Whatcom Racial Equity Commission. And out there in the county, all of us have spent the last couple days in this wonderful home crazy cult type retreat thing, which we all walk in, we're like, are we okay here? But after the initial kind of oh, it's just strange and different, it's a wonderful place that's all about love. But the first couple hours we were together, we were just kind of all, it's the first time we've been together, I think, since the election. And there was just a heaviness and a weight. And then finally someone just was like, y'all, my friend Eric, he was like, can we just take a second to acknowledge that there's a lot going on and it's really heavy and it's scary and it feels really bad. And we all just kind of, after he said that, we're like, oh, okay, yes, it's tough right now. And we spent the next few hours just kind of talking about it. Inherently, the name Whatcom Racial Equity Commission, those two words, racial equity, are words that the new administration does not want anywhere. And in my capacity as interim executive director for Northwest Youth Services, I'm in the room a lot with city, local, state, federal officials, all of whom just want organizations like Northwest Youth Services to just do the work and help the people who need it. And yet, the last call I was on with Washington State Department of Commerce, they were saying how any contract, any request for proposal, anything where we would be asking for help, for partnership, we can't use any of the words that are quite normal to us, whether they are queer, racial, equity, minority, even gender, and the official from the Department of Commerce, you could just tell through the screen that she was just she's conveying the message and just, it was just hitting her, right? And there was maybe 50 or 60 people on this virtual call, some of whom were on screen, some not, but everyone's face and everyone who you couldn't see, there was just that feeling oh my goodness, okay, this is where we're at right now. All right. The work itself, when I say the work, and I'll get into Northwest Youth Services, but this is all relevant, I promise you. The work itself is always there, whether we or anyone else wants to believe it or not. There are folks out there who, whether our administration believe it or not, there are folks out there who need us, and even if they don't check the 0 or 1 binary boxes of whatever identity our administration feels does or does not exist, they exist. And so there is the game of system. There is the game where to get money as an organization, we might have to find a different way to protect or shield our young folks. I don't know, do we call it, representation, and then we hide our queer services, we hide our immigrant services, we hide that under the banner of representative, or what do we do? Like, that's the conversation that we're having in Northwest Youth Services right now. To be seen means something. To know that me, with my myriad identities, are welcome in this space feels amazing. And what doesn't feel good is not being able to share who you are, having to hide underneath whatever you feel you have to. That doesn't feel good. That feels terrible. Like, it took me a really long time to be comfortable in my body. Like, I'm 6'6", the world is not made for my tall behind. It is just not, right? Like, and so there are times when, like, even as a younger, probably more spry person, like, I would be in a really uncomfortable chair in a meeting, and like, for like, back when meetings were like 2 hours in person, you're just like sitting there, just really uncomfortable, and at no point did I feel like I could just stand up and just stretch a little bit and just move. That's why I took the mic from behind the lectern there, because, like, by nature, I just feel a little more like this. Our young folks, the young folks we serve at Northwest Youth Services, are trying to get to the point where they can just be a little bit like this, Just to be able to close your eyes and feel safe and feel warm and feel seen and feel like somebody has your back. It's such a privilege to just be able to, just like that, right? It's a privilege. And a lot of our young folks are just coming from a place of, where am I going to stay tonight? Where's my next meal? I lost my parents. All I have is this moment right here. Last year, we had the privilege of partnering with like 1,208 or 9, I think, young folks in the state of Washington. They come from all over, but primarily we focus on Island County, Skagit County, and Whatcom County. Our services, we have adolescent housing, 13 to 17 years old. We have transitional housing for 18 to 24-year-olds, transitional in the sense that, can we help you get from this really tough place to the permanent place? We can help you with rent. We can help you learn to budget, teach you how to budget. We can help you with jobs, with education. We can connect you with people who care. Because once you're in from the outdoors, once you're in a safe place where you don't feel like it's fight or flight, when you have the opportunity just to kind of go like that, when you're not just looking here and you're able to look up and out, that's a beautiful thing. And Northwest Youth Services is trying to help our folks who are out there, whether they are out there right now or at risk of being there tomorrow. We help them get out of fight or flight. We help them be able to look up. We help them answer the questions, who are you? Where are you going? And how can we help you get there? And it's not about, you are not defined by the trauma of yesterday. We will get into it if you want, but that's their choice. It's an offer, and our young folks accept. We are not giving them anything. They are arriving with the agency and the autonomy that we all have within us that sometimes this system tries to convince us that we don't. I still have this like origami dragon in my van that this young person, my first week on the job, handed to me. And I was like, I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. It's like, this is an amazing tiny thing, and you have, she's like, I think like 15 or something, and, her story I won't get into, but it's flipping rough. And within 10 minutes of meeting me, 10 minutes of us just speaking, she handed this origami dragon to me. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. This is awesome. Like, thanks for teaching me. And she's like, what are you talking about? I didn't teach you anything. I'm not a teacher. And I'm like, well, we just met 10 minutes ago. You taught me in a single act of kindness how welcome I am in your space, because this is our pad, which is where we house our 13 to 17-year-olds in Whatcom, 1036th Street. 10 minutes. I'm feeling like I'm the fish out of water, and she does this little small thing for me. I feel like, kind of reminded me of the feeling hearing that story with the teddy bear. I have a teddy bear. Bonus points for anyone if you could tell me the name of that teddy bear. Yeah, shorter? Ted. Yeah. I was like 5 years old when I named it, so I didn't really have the full Rolodex of names there. But Ted wears a T-shirt, and that T-shirt says, I love you. And it was given to me by one of my mom's friends. Her name was Yvonne, and I've kept it with me. I even brought it to college. Yes, they made fun of me. No, I didn't care. But Ted's been with me through it all. A lot of our young folks have lots of things like Ted's with them. And we want them to know. We want to help them understand that even where they came from, the structures, the systems, maybe even the organizations, the community, even if they don't believe that it is there supporting them, Northwest Youth Services also exists to let them know that they are not alone, and that even if they don't feel like they have a community, they do. And that belief, that knowledge, goes a long way towards just that understanding that you are not alone, you do not have to do it alone, and that you don't have to continue walking alone, and that choice is yours. Northwest Youth Services. I was asked to serve as interim executive director beginning on October 1st of 2024. After this, I invite you to Google Northwest Youth Services and Cascadia Daily News, because around that time, our previous CEO made the news. And he didn't make the news for really good stuff. 5 months before being asked to take on this role, I was asked to join the board of directors. And in my 5 months on the board, I tried to learn a lot. It's like when you're in a new place, you just, what do I say? What do I not say? Can I really talk, or can I just talk? I tried my best to show up authentically as myself. And then about a month before I was asked to take on this role, I learned a couple things. And after learning those couple things, I had a week or so of conversations with current staff, former staff, whistleblowers. And what I learned was heavy enough such that I took it to the board and said, hey, we need to do a little something about this. Fast forward a month, and our former CEO was no longer working with Northwest Youth Services. So I was brought in, I was asked to serve in this role, to understand exactly where the organization was, how we were doing, were we out of alignment anywhere, how's our staff, how are our young folks, to basically go in there with a fine-tooth comb and just get right into it. And what I found is like a treasure chest of like Gordian knots. Do y'all remember Gordian knots from like, I think it was like Roman Greek mythology back in the day? And once you kind of unwind the Gordian knot, sometimes you find a diamond. And sometimes you find a spider that's poisonous, and sometimes you find absolutely nothing. But like the organization of Northwest Youth Services had been put through the ringer. And our staff had been put through the ringer. I've had conversations with probably all 55 staff, definitely individually, almost individually, definitely as a group. A lot of tears, a lot of frustration, a lot of pent-up speech, pent-up voice. And so my first few months on the job was about, as well, helping our staff recognize that they have a voice within this organization and the community. All throughout, our staff had been providing the utmost quality care for our young folks. And all throughout, as we were figuring out what was going on internally, they showed up. They showed up when 30-something staff threatened to walk out because of the actions of our previous CEO. They kept showing up when 5 of our staff left one of our sites because they were so angry with the news coverage. They were so angry that we couldn't do anything immediately, that they couldn't take it anymore. But our staff kept showing up. The need is there. Our young people need us. Our young people need you. Northwest Youth Service has been around for 50 years. I asked all of our staff if they knew our mission and vision, and they didn't. You can imagine you're working for something, trying to accomplish something, and you know it, but you can't really name it. You recognize the kind of fluidity that might invite if you all start moving in different directions as an organization. Northwest Youth Services exists to end youth and young adult homelessness. That's why we're here. And we do so through the work of our housing, engagement, and advocacy and agency services. Housing is kind of straightforward. Engagement, also kind of straightforward, but engagement consists of our outreach department, where out there, if you see a young person who might need a little bit of help, or if you know of a young person who might need a little help, you'll run into someone from our outreach staff, and they'll introduce them to the ecosystem that is Northwest Youth Services. Once they're in, they have the opportunity for housing help, for education help, for employment help, for drop-in shelters here and in Skagit County, and all the while supported by full-time, well-paid staff who care and are trained to show up. Agency and advocacy. I talked a little bit about agency. Our young folks arrive with the innate agency because they make the choice to walk inside of our doors and say, hey, I'm Lance, and I could use a little help. That's their choice. It's our job not only to help them nurture that innate agency, but also to advocate for them in the places that can help, whether it's Olympia, whether it's downtown Bellingham, whether it's Mount Vernon, whether it's in Island County. Part of my job is to advocate for our young folks. In these last 5 months, I was saying also earlier, it's been the most challenging, but the most rewarding stretch in my professional career. I've worked for 20 plus years in spaces like this, and it's been incredibly, incredibly hard. And yet, our young folks, they could really care less about what's going on internally at our organization. They don't care. They don't even think twice about it. They want to know, they want to know, what's my today looking like, and what can my tomorrow look like? And our job is to help them realize both, to see today and recognize that tomorrow is their choice. And that's really, really hard. It's a hard message to try to convey with everything going around. But you have to understand as well that our young folks don't really care about that either, because they're trying to get some food in their belly. They're trying to get a new coat. They're trying to find a couple dollars to make rent. They're trying to not fall back into the place where they look around and all there is the next second. And that's a tough place to be. So it's our job as an organization to be there for them, to recognize that internally, the changes that we have made and will continue to make is all for the benefit of our young folks. Because this work, we have to center them, we have to center where they're trying to go, who they are, and how can we, as a community, help them get there. Now, snap, if you hear me. You don't have to snap, but I hope you listened. That's all I got. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Lance, and your story, your truth, ties in so well with our ongoing internal realization that we have to be honest about organizationally who we are. We have to be honest about the challenges ahead of us, and especially the uncertainty about who we even are in such a time of transition. So thank you for modeling that. And I encourage you to be generous as our ushers come around with their baskets. If you have cash, it will go along with checks made out to BUF to Northwest Youth Services. Only if you have specifically want to contribute to BUF, put that in the memo line of your check. Otherwise, all the rest goes to Northwest. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your generosity in all the different forms that it comes. And now, in the interest in making space for one another, we are really crowded in trying to make even 2 circles. Let's make 3 concentric circles now for circle round, seriously, which means a circle has to be halfway back into the pews. We can figure it out. We'll take the time we need to figure it out because we don't want to be jammed together. We want to make space.